Got a packed episode today. Buddy, hit us with the beats.
You know it, my friend. It's part 2 of the Media Day coverage. We're focusing on the positive vibes from James Harden, from Kevin Durant, and a very nice little take from Zach Lowe that has Doug Norrie and myself pondering. Small, big, all kinds of pictures. But it was a lot of fun to finally get some positive energy as we're inching closer to the start of the Nets NBA season.
It's a great one. Following up on more of this Media Day stuff. It never really ends, and we're just getting started. Brooklyn Nets season right around the corner. Going to get to it all here. But first, the theme music.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Brooklyn, yo.
All right, welcome back to the Locked On Nets podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Adam Armbrecht, covering the Nets and also the New York Football Giants, sad as it may be, on the One Giant podcast, joined by Doug Norrie, who's also the owner and operator of DFSR. And that's not sad because he's got you covered for all those daily fantasy needs. NFL currently right now, NBA about to kick off, MLB winding down. It's all there for you. But Dougster, we're here to talk Brooklyn Nets, and we want to remind everybody, we appreciate you coming in and making us your first listen of the day, as you can, of course, follow us not only on the podcast, but also over on YouTube at Locked On Nets. Media Day, my friend. We did the dirty work of covering the difficult and not always fun Kyrie Irving conversation yesterday. Now we get to some of the other stars. I mean, the other two stars, and Kevin Durant and James Harden, and the takeaways we had from what they told us, which was all positive, exciting, and motivating to get the season underway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we spent all day on Kyrie, as you really have to when you do this kind of thing. He's the only guy in the room that didn't show up into the room. So there's that's obvious. That was national news again today, if you went around the podcast sort of wire. So we kind of had to do it. And it's tantamount to what's happening with the Nets for sure. But yeah, no, what kind of got lost in the shuffle around all that was that everyone else showed up or was there. Two, that you really feel like you're in very good hands after listening to the two other, specifically the whole team really, but specifically the two other superstars in Kevin Durant and James Harden. And it kind of gave the sense, not like we didn't know what we had already with these guys 100%. It was very clear when in the times they played together last season that this was a championship core. But hearing those guys talk, even on a boilerplate-ish sort of media day, I thought both of them opened up a little bit more than you kind of typically hear. And I got to say, I was already feeling super confident in a championship run. Harden specifically, listening to him speak more coming into the season and knowing that you're going to get a full season out of him in terms of just being on the Nets. I felt it kind of, I hated that we had to talk about the Kyrie thing for the whole episode, because it really should have been the focus on those two guys and the confidence that they were bringing into the room about going for a championship, because you couldn't walk away listening to them and think maybe it's just those two and they win the championship.
And to your point, right? Like they are the both of them in the interviews during Media Day, they're very relaxed, borderline subdued. They're not thrown off by anything that's going on. They're not going to be caught off guard by any of the questions. But I think that it's funny when we talk about the three superstars coming and joining this team. We all said they're unique personalities, but I think that the longer we've had Harden and KD on this team is the more that they are very much close in personality. I think that I'm here to play basketball. I want to win games. Like, both of them are very basketball focused in terms of, this is what I'm doing right now, and this is all that I want to be doing right now. They both have interests off the court, but when the season starts, they are both solely focused on it. And that, I think, is a lot of what you got from Media Day and all the questions. And to your point, it's what's a little bit deflating when you have one of the big three with other things going on, taking away from, it wasn't any, they weren't breaking news with any of their responses. And also, though, it was giving me the buzz about the season getting started. It was getting me excited for this championship run with these guys together to start the year, as opposed to the way it had to kind of come along over the course of last season.
They were both supportive of Kyrie and him not being there. That was, you could have set your watch to that. That's how these guys all roll. Even if they are going to think something behind the scenes or not, they're always going to be supportive. But when it came down to Harden specifically, speaking about his time in Brooklyn in the future, also it came up about his extension and how he hasn't. There have been speculation that he and Kyrie were going to follow suit after Kevin Durant had signed his extension during the summer, making him a net for the foreseeable future. And it was expected that when the window opened for those two guys to be able to do it, that they would do it also. Sean Marks expressed his confidence in getting that done during their press conference with him and Nash last week. And Harden, while it's not done right now, they have not signed that extension. Everything Harden said in his interview for Media Day, would have you think that they are on the brink of it, right? Yeah. Short of the ink being actually on the paper at this point, all the other quotes were like, you'd be shocked if it didn't happen at this point. I want to be in Brooklyn. Go ahead.
No, just specifically when because the difference between KD and Kyrie for Harden is he can wait another year and then really cash in a very big paycheck for himself. So when he was asked that question, he said, it's not about the money. And listen, that can be lip service sometimes, but when you're at a certain point in your career, as all these guys are, they've already made very big paydays. So they can choose to make decisions about basketball, best chance to win, all those kind of things. And again, Harden and KD both strike me as guys that are pretty direct in their responses. So when he was first asked the extension, what are you thinking? He said, yeah, I'm not worried about it because I feel like it'll happen when it's going to happen. And then when pressed further about the money opportunity, he was like, nah, I'm not worried about that because if it was, I probably wouldn't have maybe left the Rockets in the first place, right? Or I would have gone someplace different that could have made this money situation happen that much faster. Maybe the second that I was traded somewhere else, I want to get re-upped, I want to get extended. So in that regard, that's another checkbox of these guys both being on the same page of ultimately, yeah, I want to win. And to what you and I have talked about before, when KD signed his extension, when KD signs this extension, it makes these answers a lot easier for Harden to go, yeah, I think I'm going to stick it out with KD. We'll just see what happens if I play with, arguably the best player in the game right now.
Well, right, exactly. Because if you argue KD, you cannot argue him lower than third overall best player in basketball under any circumstances. So the point being is when you already have a chance to play with this guy, and it's like Harden's like top 10 too when he's on his game too. So we're not talking about, this isn't some hanger on, right? Harden's is an absolute elite of the elite when it comes to
loaning this thing out in LA at the back end of his career, right? Like,
exactly right. Like this is not that situation. This is a guy who, when he's on his game, is among also the very best in the game. And so when you already have one guy locked in, it's not like there are very few other greener pastures around this around the NBA that would have the ability to absorb you anyway. So even if you thought there was a better situation, there really just isn't. And so when it comes to Kevin Durant and James Harden, that's what I mean about these quotes. It's like this thing is done, right? This thing is set in stone. I think it's just whatever little bits and bobs of the contract haven't been worked out yet. Whether it was they haven't really all gotten into the same room together because Mark said they were sort of saying that they were allowing family time during the offseason and stuff like that. But when the second you hear a guy say it's not about the money anymore and probably mean it, and look, he's not going to work for free. He means that they're not going to get stuck around. They're not going to get stuck around the last, $50 million or something like that over the course of the contract.
Squabble over $50 million?
Right, the contract's going to be enormous, obviously, but it's just not going to push up against the very edges of where you could go, most likely because they're going to try to leave room to allow. You want to get paid like a superstar, but also allow for room in the salary cap with which to add guys like Patty Mills, to bring on guys like Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge. Re-sign other players like Joe Harris got paid. Like Bruce Brown. Like there's guys, you need to allow some other room to have flexibility to make some moves. And so I think that's probably where there's not going to be a squabble around those dollars. I think that's what he meant by it's not about the money. He's not coming in here. This isn't a charity operation, but he is going to, I don't think they're going to get hung up on the absolute max numbers that you could get hung up on in certain situations, especially for a guy that has enough time in the league to really start qualifying for some of those numbers. So I think that's where I'm just not worried about it at all.
Yeah, and the Nets just signed, I should have this right on the tip of my tongue, but they just signed a new marketing agreement around their jerseys and how they're going to be having really promoting their product. Like this goes into, it ties into market, right? Like you're in a major market, you're playing with other major superstars. So your profile is going to be as high as it could be. The off the court opportunities are going to be among the best in the NBA as well. So I think, we talked about that before. It's both a game and then also a business. So you can, if you're James Harden, look beyond the court and say, I'm also going to make some of that up on the back end here with what I'm afforded in terms of marketability. So I think it's good to hear that from Harden, especially right out of the gates at the front end of this season. And I'll be interested to see. I don't care when it happens, but I'm just curious when will it happen, right? Like how much pressing will they do? Because Sean Marks had said they thought that they would get it done before the start of the regular season. There's no onus that they have to accomplish it by that point, but it'll be nice. The same way with the Kevin Durant. We all thought it was a foregone conclusion that he would sign the extension. It's a foregone conclusion that Harden will as well. And then once they officially sign it, I'll be excited to know now I've got 2 out of 3.
Yeah, there's still some time before the regular season. This is not tomorrow by any means. So there's weeks and weeks until that can happen. Now that everyone's in the same room together on a more consistent basis with training camp and then leading into the season, I think we probably see some expediency around the final things. I still very much believe this is done before the season starts. I don't think they're gonna drag it into the season. And I gotta tell you, especially if this Kyrie thing drags in onto it, I think, well, I'll wait this out to the break because I have a few more thoughts on this Harden thing. I want to get to, I do want to get to what Kevin Durant said. I want to bring up one thing that a national media guy who is not a like sort of a smut peddler when it comes to news, like an actual real voice, had an interesting opinion around the James Harden / Kyrie extensions that I do want to bring up, which I think is relevant to this conversation. First, going to talk to you about our friends over at Sweatblock. Not a single guy on the Nets was sweating in front of that media day yesterday. That's because they know they're going for a championship. But maybe you have been dealing with sweating in your life. It can be super embarrassing, especially if you're in front of those bright lights. Maybe giving a presentation up in front of a bunch of folks. You picked out a shirt because you think that's going to hide the sweat the best. I've been in this situation before, folks. You don't have to deal with it anymore if you're using Sweatblock. They have a dry shirt guarantee. Sweatblock keeps you dry, or you're going to get your money back. It's the best antiperspirant on the market. Point. Stop. This stuff just works. You can wear what you want to wear. You can have more confidence when you're in front of folks. You're not worried about those uniform changes midday at work, because Sweatblock has got you covered. It can work for up to 7 days as well. You've probably seen this all over the airwaves. Everyone's talking about Sweatblock right now. It's stronger and more effective than most clinical antiperspirants. You put it on at night, you go to bed, the next morning you wake up, wash, go about your day. No more sweat guaranteed. It can sound too good to be true. I've used this stuff. This stuff just works. You can get it Sweatblock today for 20% off at sweatblock.com. Got to use the promo code Locked On, or you head on over to Amazon, CVS. They have it as well. But you want to put a little wind in our sails, go to sweatblock.com, 20% off, promo code Locked On, sweatblock.com.
And of course, my friends, we got to remind you that Rock Auto, it's the place you want to be. Why? Because you could choose to spend 30, 50, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership. But why not just go over to rockauto.com? You can search all the parts that you need, just like they're going to do at the store for you. Get the best prices. Make sure it's the right make and model that you're trying to work on. It's a family-owned business, which is also a nice little touch, I think, serving those do-it-yourselfers like myself and Doug Norrie, who are successfully or unsuccessfully trying to monitor their own car health. They've been doing that for over 20 years, my friends. They have everything you could need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpeting. How about that? You head over to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in the How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. So take me down then, my friend, this non-smut peddling road that you want to kind of maybe bring back a little bit more of a positive narrative around the media and how they cover some of these things, and giving proper context, I'm assuming, to situations around the NBA.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll get, like I said, we'll get the KD here in a second, because there was some funny stuff that came out with him during media day. Some good quotes as well. Some interesting looks at his time, specifically not making the finals last year. But Zach Lowe from ESPN, the great Zach Lowe, one of the very best, if not the very best guy in the entire industry when it comes to analysis / inside. He marries inside status, like in terms of having things really well sourced, with a total X's and O's genius. So he's really, if you don't listen, you read Zach Lowe, so I probably don't need to tell you. he had Sarah Kustok on, who's also absolutely amazing from the Yes Network and who does obviously Nets games. So she came on to his podcast that came out Tuesday, and they discussed Nets Media Day. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about here, right? That's, just kind of some high level Net stuff and a little bit about Kyrie. One little note, it's worth listening to also. Most of the stuff, if you listen to us every day, it's going to be a lot of rehashing a lot of stuff we talked about. But there was one little piece, a little nugget that went in there from Lowe, who did not source this, but oftentimes when he says things, it's because there's been something said to him. It's easy to formulate opinions, I think, on his part when he's so dialed into the league in terms of just like connections that he has. Anyway, he said that the extensions for Kyrie and Harden, he was of the mind that Kyrie's extension specifically could be in jeopardy if this vaccine thing goes on. Like if this does not correct itself, and for instance, Kyrie cannot play home games, he was of the mind that the Nets would actually pull that. They would not offer the extension because they would say, this is just not, we're not going to do this. We'll do this now, but we are not going to do this into the future. The reason I bring that up, one, this isn't just some random person clickbait looking for stuff. This is Zach Lowe. This guy is at the very top of the industry. He does not say stuff.
He doesn't need the eyeballs on his work. He's already
It's probably got the most listened to basketball podcast there is. This is ESPN Zach Lowe. This is guys. It's like him. It's Woj. It's Shams. Except that he's a little bit different than those guys. Anyway,
it's Adam Marbeck. You get it.
He's just kind of like the hierarchy is like, it's like kind of up there at the top. So where I find this to be interesting is around Harden. Well, one, it's just interesting to say it because it's like, whoa, we thought this was a foregone conclusion and maybe it's not. And because there's new context for it and new information that you really need to parse out. And two, to me, this would make the Harden extension even more of a priority, right? Because if this is the case and you are worried about this third superstar and his availability, and frankly, just the consistency with which he's going to play, because that has not always been in question, pandemic, or that's always sort of been, an issue, vaccine or not. Like this is not the first time he's missed stuff.
Yep. That
it really would feel like the Harden extension would actually jump all the way to the front. Like it was already at the front. And now it's like, we really need to get this done now because we need to lock this in because we do not know what's happening with this other guy. And the hope is he's going to be able to play. But it actually, Harden was already one of the most valuable players in the league. Now it's even more important to get this done. And it might not come at the same time as Kyrie's for these other different reasons, because they might just say, hey, dude, we were putting you first now. Like, you're first in line. Let's get this done. We cannot trust this other situation. Maybe it works itself out. We're not sure. We have to get this done now.
Yeah, and out of the three superstars, Kyrie's the youngest, and he's 29, so he's technically still hitting the peak prime of it, of his game coming up here. Where Harden and Durant, you could say they're right at the top of it, and then things are different now in the NBA. Players play better longer than they used to, but these are the two older players, Kevin Durant and James Harden. I think that this is, so we didn't really get into any of the beyond what's currently happening with Kyrie Irving, but there's been a narrative, I think, in the national media that the Nets are beholden, right? You are beholden to what these stars want, and that includes Kyrie Irving, and that's why it doesn't matter. Last year he wants to stay away, you let it happen, you don't care. This year maybe he's not gonna be able to play home games, you don't care, you let it happen. I think, and you can tie it in with getting someone like Lowe putting this type of narrative potentially out there, is that the Nets are looking at this and saying, hey, last year was, it was what it was. And we were willing to sacrifice that and see what happened once we got to the playoffs. You also had some injuries after being away as well. Okay, we put that in our back pocket. Now we come into this year. Another opportunity could be an issue. And obviously it's always going to run through the filter of Kevin Durant first, and then probably James Harden too. But I think the perception that the Brooklyn Nets had of what it meant to have first Kyrie, which got you KD, and then the opportunity to get Harden, I think their perspective on these three players has evolved over the course of last season, specifically with James Harden, and how they view him and his value to this team and the adjustment that he made to his style of gameplay for this particular team, and saying, boy, James Harden, like you said, maybe it's even more important because you don't know what's going to happen with Kyrie. But you can even make the case that it's more important because Harden might be more important to winning championships over this extension run with Kevin Durant than even Kyrie. Availability, commitment, lack of issues, whatever, and then also style of play. James Harden's commitment to being a pure facilitator and not caring about himself putting up numbers first, that plays itself into the team that you've constructed over these last couple of years.
Right. And if you just look at media day and you say, okay, we have one guy that's here, and he said all the right things,
right.
And he said all the right things. And, he said things beyond what you even needed to say around, how much you wanted to be in Brooklyn. Like I said, the money isn't important anymore. Those are things that's just, by the way, this isn't negotiation 101. You really shouldn't say the money's not that important to me while you're like all you fledgling negotiators out there. Don't start with that when you're reading.
Money is no object. Now let's talk about the money.
Negotiations for dummies doesn't start off chapter 1 to saying that money is not important. But when you say those things, right, when you go in and say all the right things, it really just does, even on a media day level, show you sort of the differences of what's happening on an organizational level between these two guys. And when you kind of just start wrapping that all together, look, I don't think the Nets ever probably wanted to prioritize, certainly not in the media, they would ever want to do it. They would never want to prioritize these three guys. It was always sort of they're linked together. They're spoken about together. They are kind of grouped together for better, but mostly better, maybe a little bit worse, but they're grouped together along all of these lines. And that's just kind of what happens in the NBA. And so I don't think the Nets ever would have wanted to go out and say, hey, actually, here's the list. KD 1, Kyrie 2, or James Harden 2, Kyrie 3. My guess is internally that is actually the order, though. It probably was the order before all this happened, just from a talent standpoint. They never had to really worry about that because it looked like everything was going to be done in lockstep. But now this other little wrinkle has been thrown in here, and if they never wanted to talk about it or think about a hierarchy before, now you have to think about it. The number one's already taken care of. Kevin Durant's done. He's good. He's a net. Now you look at the next two guys and say, it's time for us to prioritize this. And any rational person in the world would start prioritizing and say, we have to lock this thing up because this other guy is a wild card and we just don't know. Do we want him on the team? Of course, he's amazing. Everyone wants him to play. That's not it. There's nothing about Kyrie on a basketball court at all. Like everyone, 100 out of 100 people would say, yes, we want Kyrie Irving on the court. We just can't trust it's going to happen right now consistently. Yeah. And so at that point, you have to put all your faith into the guys that you can trust, sort of at least on this one fundamental level. And that feels like from Lowe's comment, which might have just been off the cuff, but that it seems like that has to now be just the stone cold priority, and Harden said all the right stuff.
You have to have the contingency plan, right? I mean, that's the way you have to look at it. We love to have all three of them here. We'd love to have Kyrie on the court. We also cannot, this is you're taking in information on any situation in your life to ignore what sample sizes are telling you and not think about, okay, we had one plan in mind. What would we do if you're not going to have the type of foresight, then you're painting yourself into a corner that you may end up all of a sudden turning around and saying, oh crap, we don't have Kyrie. Is our team good enough? Do we have the pieces in place? Did we execute this properly? And that's where you think that the Nets are certainly not a team that would find themselves in a corner, not knowing how to get themselves out of it.
100%. All right, we're going to close this off, talk a little bit about KD at media day. First, Built Bar. You need a protein bar. You're working out. You're just hungry. You need a snack in the middle of the day. You got to make sure that you're fed. You got to make sure you got the energy. Built Bar is the way to go. Very best protein bar on the market. Really no debate about that at this point. If you've had a Built Bar covered in chocolate, the flavors are absolutely unbelievable. We talk about a lot about debates around here. No debate about whether the Built Bar is the best protein bar out there. Coconut, raspberry, mint brownie, salted caramel, double chocolate, just some of the flavors you're going to get with Built Bar. And then you talk about the stats, 17 to 18 grams of protein. That's good. Calories ranging from 130 to 180. Ooh, it's starting to pick up here. Only 4 to 5 grams of sugar. Okay. Only 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Now we are cooking. Amazing flavors, all tasty, all super healthy. You can get Built Bar right now by going to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. It's just like our podcast network. And you're going to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKEDON for 15% off at built.com.
And hey, folks, betonline.ag wants you to know that they are back and better than ever. All eyes are on the NFL and college football right now as both seasons get underway. And as always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With the new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests at betonline.ag are available as they continue to be the number one source for everything football. Head over to that website using your laptop or the little mobile device we call a cell phone, and you can go ahead and get signed up today to receive your 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use promo code NFL100 from football, baseball, basketball, boxing, and right now, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet online, your online sportsbook experts. Promo code locked on. Doug, if I may, I just wanted to be here, said Kevin Durant. I thought it was the perfect timing for me to do so. We all three talked about playing together for a long time. Their situations are going to happen on their time when they want it to happen. We all respect that, but it was good for me to get it done and commit to the team and the organization and my teammates and just continue to keep working from here. That is Kevin Durant speaking to getting the extension done and getting it out of the way. Again, not to be kissing the proverbial butt cheeks here, but Harden did a great job at media day saying all the right things. Like, this is Kevin Durant, like saying all the right stuff. And by the way, doing it in the totally, as I said at the top, like the complete relaxation with which Kevin Durant sits in front of a microphone is just like, yeah, I'm here. Am I going to, and I don't, this isn't a knock. This is all a compliment of like, listen, I'm going to go ahead and ease on back, friends. Let's all just settle down, throw your questions as they come to you. I'm here for it. And I'm like, and I'm perfectly fine to stay as long as you'd like. Like he's such a relaxed dude. His responses are so calm. There's no like, peaks or valleys to any of his responses. But that's him on the extension. And I think that makes sense. And it makes sense for his personality of, remember, when he decided to come to Brooklyn, didn't get the chance to do it when you're drafted to OKC. Got to go over to Golden State. Like, this is about him being able to dictate terms on how he wants to finish out his career. So it's nice to see that the small sample size of last season and prior to that, while dealing with his injury recovery, let him know, yeah, Brooklyn's the spot for me. I can go ahead and spend the rest of my career here.
Dude, I just gotta say, thank God, whatever deity that you look up to into the heavens or down below to give thanks to. Thank God. I'm gonna say thank God Kevin Durant came to Brooklyn.
Thanks,
like
Bill Murray for me,
Bill Murray.
That's what I look to. In my darkest of moments, I think, what would Bill Murray do?
I'm trying to think of someone good and I just blanked. Okay. So no, I was gonna say there's the groundlings practice over here. It's ready for Second City Improv. I'm like,
the ball, Doug. I threw you the ball, and now it's just it fell. It's broken on the floor.
Thank God this guy came to Brooklyn, man. It is the absolute. If you followed the Brooklyn Nets for a while, it's like you can go through sort of like ups and downs with a team. And if you around the NBA, sometimes you kind of, at this point, people just sort of follow the superstars around. But it's easy if you look around these other teams to look at what they have. And then you just look at Kevin Durant showing up on media day and thinking, dude, this guy's going to be playing for the Nets for the next few years at least. It's such a gift. And his personality is so awesome in the way that he just presents himself, because it's simultaneously laser focused, but also just unflappable. And so, I mean, I guess laser focused and unflappable go hand in hand, but it's weirdly not off-putting as it can be for some people that are like this, because sometimes when you have this much, when you're just so intensely,
can come off a little bit talking down to people, like you see, like, hey, listen,
yeah, or just weird, like or just weird. Like there's been plenty of superstars that just, or it comes off fake because you're trying to seem more relaxed than you are, but you're really not because you are so focused. Like definitely guys had this in them, and I won't say who they are, but if you just follow the history of the NBA, there's dudes like this that are very, very good, but it's just a little weird, and it's just not like that with him. It's everything about what he does on the court and really what he does off the court too is so easy to like. And so just kind of easy because everything looks so easy and it's all so perfect. And this media day was just another, I hate to sound like I'm just gushing about it, because I didn't really have this gushing sense when I was watching it, but in talking about all this other drama and stuff, to have this dramaless guy, short of just kind of like whatever trolling he does on social media sometimes, but that's not real drama. This dramaless guy that just comes in and says, dude, here to play basketball, going to be a net for a while. Let's just go win this thing. broke my heart to lose last year. I don't want that to happen again. I'm paraphrasing. I don't want that to happen again. Let's get to work. It's just it's the easiest thing in the world to root for. It's exactly why you want to root for athletes in sports. Is just like this guy embodies so much of that.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. And it's true. Thank Bill Murray for Kevin Durant in Brooklyn, obviously. And there's some other quotes from him, but I because we're kind of tying all of these things together with everything that has gone on with Kyrie now this offseason, with how unflappable and laser focused Harden and KD seem to be. Like, is there the world, because everything will run through the filter of Kevin Durant? Like, do you think that he can get to a place where the ownership comes to him, where Sean Marks comes to him and says, hey, there's a version of this where Kyrie Irving is not a part of what we're doing here? And Kevin Durant says, yeah, I get it. Like, is that something that's feasible? Or because these guys are, and he mentioned it there, even in that quote, all three of us talked about wanting to play together. We're all going to get taken care of at different times. Like, he's included. None of them are excluding Kyrie from when they talk about what they're looking to accomplish in Brooklyn. But is there a world where you think it gets to the place where Kevin Durant is balancing the books in his mind of wanting to win versus wanting to accomplish whatever the end game is with Kyrie, as being a part of that, or him being absent from it, right? The version where he's going to miss half of the games potentially. Is that a breaking point for Kevin Durant where he says, well, I can't have that though. Like, you can do whatever you want, but not the version of selling our goals short.
I mean, what you know about Kevin Durant at this point is winning is the most important thing. And it would seem as if most things are secondary when it comes to a basketball perspective.
Yeah.
I'd be floored if any player stood in the way of that for him.
Before that, yeah.
Friend or not. Yeah, I just don't think. And look, one thing to remember about basketball players in general is it's really not worth it to try to compare your friendships in your life to the friendships that these guys have on the court and off the court, because it's just not anything close to the same. And so you can't say to yourself, well, it's my best friend from high school and I'm always, I would never do something at my job this is not how these guys are built.
This is like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans on the Marvel set, right? Like, they're friends. They work together. It doesn't mean that they are lifelong lockstep partners in crime on every single thing, right?
Think about it this way. You saw PJ Tucker and Kevin Durant. If you watched them on the basketball court last year playing for the Bucks, and that was your only glimpse, you'd be like, oh my God, these guys might kill each other on the runway. Like, they might, but they're friends. They're friends. Competitiveness is the number one thing. And I think the relationship piece is secondary for most guys. Now, a lot of guys are able to do both, and you really have to be able to do both to be able to be successful, because you have to play with other players. But if it's in this scenario, if it's a Kyrie Irving or we're going to go win a championship thing, I just don't think there's even a question. I think that it's championship time. I don't think that there's any, I could be wrong, but I just, if it wasn't, he would have waited to sign the extension. They would all did it at the same time. It's just that he's there because he believes in the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, by all accounts, have done nothing but right by Kyrie Irving. I wonder what other team would have this much patience around a situation like this. There's very few. I don't think many other teams would have this kind of messaging around this. What Kyrie Irving has sort of done since he's been here. Great at basketball, but again, you can't, the off the court stuff, you can't really. It becomes kind of overwhelming at times. So it's not like if anything, they've been the models of patience when it comes to
anything. The circumstances that Kyrie has been a part of for Kevin Durant from afar would go, objectively, I can see that Kyrie's kind of doing his own thing, and I may be okay with that. I understand it could be a difficult situation from a team standpoint, and I'm watching the organization still do it the right way, right? So you're actually, Kyrie's even providing you an extra sample size that, hey, this organization's still going to do the right thing by us. They're not going to waver in that until I, Kevin Durant, maybe come to the table and say, hey, it's okay if something has to change here. And that, what a low level example of this in DeAndre Jordan, right? He's a buddy. Right. He's on the team. And then they say, hey, we're thinking. They go, yeah, I get it. It's cool. Let's go. Don't worry about it.
Great example. Right? Yeah, that's a great example. And that's actually the perfect example, because we've already seen this happen once. And Adam fist pumps on YouTube. We've already seen this happen one time. You're right. That we have the perfect example from just a few weeks ago where your friend came in, The organization did everything right by him, right down to the very end. And he signed his extension and he's a net for life, and DeAndre Jordan's on the Lakers now, right? I don't know why the situation would be any different. Kyrie's way better. So there's that. But beyond that, I don't think
Kevin Durant and James Harden, for that matter, would look. And listen, this is all just conversation, but I don't think those two guys would sit there in a room and the rest of the roster, say minus Kyrie, they'd probably still look at it and say, "Oh, we're not the odds-on favorites to win the title, right?" Like,
oh, yeah.
we think we're overwhelming if we know how good Kyrie is, but even in absence of him, we're not going to stand here and tell you, boy, I don't know, second round maybe if we're lucky. No, they're still going to be looking at saying, yeah, we'll be a championship contender.
And there was little bit of dribs and drabs reporting today that there was speculation that Kevin Durant was going to sort of having some influence over Kyrie Irving here, and that there was going to be the situation was going to clear up. So I do think which also speaks to their relationship and sort of how I think Kevin Durant is viewed in that organization, just as a basketball player in general. I think if I had to make a bet right now, I think that Kevin Durant sort of leads the way here, and they are a full strength basketball team in Brooklyn come the start of the regular season. That's my guess, and it would be a testament to Durant's sort of star at this point also to say, hey, I'm the face of the franchise. I'm the best player. We are going to win a championship. Can we just go do this thing? Like, let's go do it. And I think in the end, because that's the only thing from media day and every other time you've seen this guy, that's all you get from him. How could you not follow this guy? I just don't. It's just that's what I meant at the beginning. But thank God he came to Brooklyn or thank Bill Murray he came to Brooklyn, because it's all so steady, even for a guy that probably for a while that was portrayed as not that way for the Warriors. But I think that was more of a media driven narrative around his sort of around this attitude, maybe not playing well around guys like Draymond or guys like Steph, right? In that city, but his demeanor has not changed. It's the exact same. It just seems to play. It plays a lot better here, I guess.
And at this moment right now, I agree with you 100% as well, that I think you're going to see a full strength, everyone there ready to go regular season. I have not based on anything, but a lot of the rumors and speculations about Kyrie haven't been based on anything. So if I'm going to give my take on it, I think that everybody gets on board, and this is going to be the version of full strength team we thought we were going to see at some point last season.
All right, we're going to come back later or tomorrow, do a little round out a few other little media day tidbits. I got to tell you, one of my little thing here is I can already tell Patty Mills is my new favorite non-big three net, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
And Patty Mills.
Oh, just everything about it. It's awesome. I cannot wait. It's all the whole demeanor, the accent, everything. I'm into it all. So Patty, we'll talk a little bit. I'm swooning over here.
It's intoxicating.
We'll talk about Patty Mills. We'll talk about a little Aldridge. Aldridge has some really enlightening quotes around his time on his way back to the NBA. So we will get back into that as well. Thanks again for making us your first listen on the Locked On Nets podcast. Also, make sure you're heading over to YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Every single episode's going up on YouTube. We're going to be commenting over there as well. So if you want to throw in a comment, we're all responding to everything. It's become a really good way to interact over there. So make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Nets YouTube channel. The link will be in the show notes.
And of course, the secret is to have a sense of yourself, your real self, your unique self, and not just once in a while or once a day, but all through the day, the week, and life. Willie Murray.
Oh, one of the all-time great God poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.